Hello and welcome to Lok Sabha television. The Finance Minister, Mr. Pranab Mukherjee, will join us for the very first interview after presenting the General Budget 2012-13. I'm Siddharth Zarabi. Thank you very much, Mr. Finance Minister, for coming in and speaking about the budgets so soon after it was presented in Parliament. Clearly, the big question first at this stage, Pranabda, is the overall climate that we have seen in the past few days, the difficult circumstances that you have faced both on the economy side domestically and internationally, as well as the political climate that has soured over the past few weeks and days, must have made your task very difficult, sir.
You know, the latest political development, of course, is it has happened so suddenly and so nearer. By that time the entire exercise was over. But the other issue which you have raised, that is important, that the overall global situation and domestic situation are not very conducive. On three major areas which I had to take into account while formulating my budget proposals: how to bring back the economy on higher growth trajectory, primary consideration was there. Second was how to ensure that the near double digit inflation which doggedly pursued, rather obstinately pursued Indian economy for almost 2 years, headline inflation, how to moderate it. And third, the fiscal consolidation, which I believe absolutely imperative to ensure higher growth and also to ensure that growth becomes inclusive. We cannot allow in fiscal profligacy. Therefore, these are the three major constraints which we had to keep in mind while formulating the budget proposals. It was a difficult task, and my entire exercise, if you look into it, you will find that I have given clear indications how I am going to come back to the path of higher growth trajectory, how to make the fiscal consolidation, and at the same time how to address the problems, particularly from the supply side constraints, by removing those constraints either by higher allocations or by having focused attention. So, that is the environment, overall environment in which we had to formulate, because I had at the back of my mind that Eurozone crisis, there is no solution visible in near future. Recovery of USA has begun, but still it is halting and fragile. Same is the story with Japan. Therefore, one of the important aspects which I have also emphasized was to be the domestic demand driven growth strategy, how to enhance the purchasing power of the rural population, which will generate adequate demand, which will act as a driver for the growth.
Pranab, let's come to the point of fiscal consolidation. Clearly, last year's fiscal projections that you had made were based on certain assumptions, of which oil was certainly not in your control at all. That really took away some sheen of the fiscal deficit numbers. You have now projected a 5.1% fiscal deficit for the next fiscal year, assuming a certain level of oil prices around $115 per barrel. Current prices, Pranabda, even today, the number that has come in is at $124 billion. So, my question to you, sir, is that is there a downside risk from crude oil supplies as far as the basic fiscal projection and maths of the central government is concerned?
No. So far the budgetary exercise is concerned, I have not addressed one of the major areas which is causing substantial erosion of resources by enhancing the subsidy. Therefore, the resources which could have been deployed in other areas are to be diverted there. It happened last year, because my assumption was it will be $90 per barrel, but now I am pretty sure that it is not going to be less than $115 per barrel. But the strategy which I am working on the one hand I am working on the additional resource mobilization. Second aspect on which I have emphasized on the expenditure control, I have bound myself by reducing the by bringing it down to the level of the 2% of GDP, which is the current level of subsidies, and to bring it down to 1.75% of the GDP in the next 3 years, and also to have a 3-year fiscal target. The fiscal statement which I am committed to present to Parliament, where there will be 3 years rolling target, which will provide us an opportunity to make an correction in the mid course as and when needed. But at the same time, these issues are to be addressed, which I could not address. These issues cannot be left uncovered.
On the subsidy control side, you have clearly made a very marked departure by saying that certain kinds of subsidies will remain capped in some ways. At least that is the sense that we got from your speech, sir. Beyond that, you have also spoken about additional resource mobilization. Again, on the oil subsidy front, do you anticipate a major problem? Because in the current year, you saw increase in terms of the oil subsidy go up by 45,000 crore.
Yeah.
What is the scenario likely to be, sir?
No, we shall have to address these issues. Collectively, we shall have to address these issues, and because budgetary exercise is not the only way we can address it, but we shall have to address these issues. When, how, of course, that is a matter to be decided. But one point I am also going to address to the political establishment of the country, because collectively we shall have to think of it. It is not the question of this party or that party, because if it had its partisan impact on the economy, it is going to affect all. Therefore, at some point of time we shall have to recognize this fact, and continuous efforts are needed. What type of action, what type of roadmap I am thinking, I am just not spelling it out, but shortly we shall have to do that.
Okay, I probably take that as a hint to some of the suggestions from the economic survey on petrol and diesel coming in, but I won't press you on that question. Let's come to the additional resource mobilization, sir. Clearly, the budget has taken a very brave step by more or less returning to pre-2008 levels, both on excise, going with a hike in service tax, also a significant increase in certain items on customs duties. Your net tax mop-up after everything else, including the 4,500 crore on direct taxes that you are giving away through the substantial giveaways for salaried income taxpayers, is 41,000 crore, sir. Is this enough? Was there scope? Did you consider going a bit more, or would that have?
You know, I could have gone easily to 14%, because that was the pre-crisis rate. And you have noticed, since I assumed this office in 2009 at a very critical juncture of our economy, international economy, in the context of international financial crisis, I have not only provided a stimulus package, but I have also brought down the taxes, and I allowed to have this reduced excise duty for almost 3 years, 2009, 10, 10, 11, 11, 12.
So, the stimulus took quite significant time to unwind, and what you are also saying, sir, which is very
important. And that I have not done fully, because it was 14%. I have pegged it up at 12%. So far service taxes are concerned, as I mentioned, that now 18 years we have, this is the 18th year we are having the service taxes. 1992 the constitution was amended. It is contributing substantially to the GDP. So, there should be some correlation, and it should get reflected. That is why administratively we have decided to have a negative list and some exemptions, rest of the items will be brought. Third objective which I had before me, that one day we shall have to convert in GST. Therefore, the rate should be aligned, excise duty, service tax, keeping in view, that is why I have kept in view the areas where these states would like to impose the taxes while choosing the negative list and exempted category list. I had to keep all these factors in mind, because this is not 1 year strategy, this has the future plan of converging into GST, having the almost common code. I am going to set up a committee to have the excise duty and service tax, how we can bring it closer. So, keeping that the taxation policy, because these are the two major taxation reforms. One is direct tax code, another is the GST. Direct tax code, now I have received the report, I will have the opportunity of examining it and introducing it. But GST I shall, that is why I sought the support of everybody. Progress is there, some work is being done, but much more area is to be covered.
Pranabda, you have gone out of your way to involve the states as far as the GST exercise is concerned. The instrumentality of the empowered committee is something where a BJP senior politician is heading that. At this stage, you just mentioned one day. What do you think that one day could be for the advent of the regime? Because you have also today promised that the IT network, the crucial platform, will come in place by August this year.
Yeah, and that is the convergence point between the states and the center.
Right.
They are also using this GST network. Therefore, we will have, and they are fully convinced that there is a need. Even for the model legislation, we are working in close cooperation. Certain areas there are divergence of the views, certain areas convergence of the views are coming, but you shall have to recognize the fact that constitution amendment without the support of all parties, particularly the principal opposition party and some other parties, is not possible. It requires not only two-third majority in both the houses, but also the ratification by half of the states and major states. If they do not ratify, it would not be possible. Therefore, keeping that in view, we shall have to work for convergent approach and build up consensus. However painstaking it may be, there is no other. That is why I am not putting any time frame. This is a constant exercise you shall have to carry on.
One of the biggest things that you have also announced in the budget, and correct me if I am wrong, but in the last 7-8 years, one has never heard the finance minister talk about 7-8 major economic bills being presented in one session. I recall you counting out all the 7-8 bills that will be presented in the budget session. How hopeful are you, sir, given the current political climate, and I must ask you this question, of the political environment allowing you to go ahead with what are essential reforms, not just for the UPA, but for the entire country, sir?
No, these reforms are for entire country. Take the case of PFRDA. PFRDA was introduced by the NDA government. It was new pension scheme was operationalized from 1st of January 2004 when they were in government. Therefore, many of these were initiated during their time. This is a continuing one. Reform is a continuing one. Political establishments may come and go, but reform is a continuing process, so we shall have to do it. But I am telling you that some of these which have already received the recommendations of the standing committee, it will be easier to get through, because some of the work has been done. Those which have not received the which I will introduce, naturally they will go to the standing committee. My efforts are on two fronts. Where the standing committee has made recommendations, I will start talking to the various political parties on the basis of those recommendations and see that there is a convergence of the views. There are 4-5 legislations like that, which I am introducing about 8-10, which I am introducing. Introduction, there will be no problem at the introduction stage, but thereafter we shall have to pursue that at the committee stage. There is the convergence of the views, because parliamentary standing committee consists of representatives from all sections. Therefore, if there is a convergence there, I can harp on that convergence to have the larger convergence in the house.
Pranabda, you also made a grand gesture today by picking up some suggestions in terms of the giveaways on the personal income tax front. Although the standing committee on DTC, the report promises much more, can we expect, as far as the Aam Aadmi is concerned, or a lot of our viewers of this program right now, can we expect the finance minister to look at next year possibly for further exemptions or giveaways?
I am not making any commitment, because I shall have to examine the DTC. Only 2 provisions of DTC I have accepted it. One is of course that GAR I have accepted, and the advance pricing agreement I have accepted, because these 2 will help us to fight against black money and to provide certainty on taxation, particularly from the foreign investors' point of view. As I want to create, my objective is not only to mobilize resources and to prevent generation and proliferation of unaccounted wealth. My objective is also to ensure that we reach higher growth, that is investors' confidence. More investment comes, investment ratio increases. Therefore, keeping that in view, certain things which are to be done. One is to build up the confidence on the legal system of the country. That is why advance pricing Act, then your GAR, these two have the capacity of creating confidence in the prospective investors from abroad.
If I can just ask you one more question on GAR, there has been some criticism even in the DTC report about the GAR and how it could create a regime which would be very tough on foreign investors. It would force companies to comply more. What kind of assurance can you hold out on those?
That's why I will have to examine the recommendations of them, the DTC. I have not yet fully studied there, but intention is to prevent wrongdoing. Intention is not to provide harassment, to reduce harassment and at the same time to prevent wrongdoing. Therefore, the basic objective is to facilitate, not to obstruct.
Okay, sir. There is one more fine print that is coming through from the finance bill, and this is to do with the measure that has apparently been introduced to avoid a situation like what happened in the Vodafone case. Sir, can you sort of elaborate on what has been decided, because the sense that we are picking up is that it is a retrospective amendment for perhaps 1962. Does it really amend section 9?
And you know, there will be certain clarifications which you have issued in the finance bill, but so far retrospective fiscal legislation is concerned, retrospective amendment in respect of fiscal legislation is concerned, there are umpteen examples. Many a times court suggests, court interprets the law in a particular way, and in the judgment they suggest that government should address these issues, and government can address it by making amendment. Therefore, even in this Supreme Court judgment, they also suggested that government should ensure that there is certainty about the responsibilities and owners of the prospective investors. Therefore, keeping all those aspects in view, the necessary clarification has been issued and steps have been taken in the finance bill to address those issues.
Finance Minister, sir, you have also made several proposals as far as agriculture is concerned. So, in some ways, while fiscal consolidation is the cornerstone of your budget 2012-13, agriculture once again and infrastructure seem to be the forward-looking moves as far as ensuring that the domestic economy keeps on growing. Several initiatives announced in this regard. Overall, how would you sort of describe it at this stage? What kind of results do you expect to pan out over the next 2 to 4 quarters?
As I told you, my objective is 3. 1, fiscal consolidation. Another, bring back the economy to higher growth trajectory. And third, at the same time, to have moderate inflationary regime. To have moderate inflationary regime, one of the major reason why inflationary pressure built up was the supply constraints on essential agricultural commodities. Therefore, those are to be addressed, and I have taken enough steps, number of measures to address those issues. That is one aspect. Second, agriculture is going to contribute to play a major role in the economy, though its share in as percentage in the overall GDP basket has come down, but large number of people depend on agriculture. Our food security is essentially dependent on agriculture. So, agriculture cannot get less priority. In this world, nobody can feed 1.21 billion people. To ensure food security, it is not merely to give certain quantum of food at a predetermined price. Much more important is we should produce enough so that we can feed our growing population. That is the most important, and there agriculture plays a very major role. And I must thank the farmers and my colleague in the Ministry of Agriculture, Mr. Siddharth Pawar, that when I announced 2 years ago that I am extending the Green Revolution to eastern region, I have got benefit. In the last Kharif, 7 million ton additional paddy production has come from that region. That is why I have decided to increase the allocation from 400 crores to 1000 crores this year.
My last questions to you, sir. Last year also you had invoked Lord Indra as far as the monsoons are concerned. Clearly that would be, if the monsoons are good, it would be a good thing. One key consumer point, there has been a customs duty increase as far as gold is concerned, a hint that we picked up from the economic survey yesterday. What is the rationale behind that?
Rationale is because the last year, you know, next to petroleum import, The second foreign exchange consuming item was gold.
So, black gold and yellow gold.
people may have craze for gold, but that should not cause fiscal distortion, because if a substantial chunk of my current account deficit is contributed by import of gold, then I shall have to take some steps. Keeping that in view, and I have fixed the rate at 6%, to 4%,
right.
From 2% to 4%.
Right.
I have not gone beyond that, because always I kept in mind that when the tendency for gold is there, craze for gold is there, if the legitimate route is stopped, then it will come through illegitimate route. At the same time, to discourage it, I impose the duty, so that there is a discouragement of importing precious metals by spending the precious foreign exchange which we require and distorting the current account deficit.
My very final question to you, you have been quite generous as far as the stock markets are concerned in some ways, rationalizing, cutting down on STT, also introducing a new Rajiv Gandhi equity scheme at 10 lakh rupees. There is other things which are also related to that. But really at this stage, what would you expect the response to be to some of the capital market reforms that you have introduced, including liberalizing ECBs, FIIs? Do you expect that this will send out a very clear message to the world that India is doing its utmost to attract foreign capital?
What message you should give, or any Indian finance minister should give now? There is a situation where the capital outside which is available, they must have a safe place for investment. India can emerge as a safe destination. It has well established rule of law, it has multi-party democratic system, it has its commitment, international commitment, where Government of India did never fail, whatever party may lead the government. Therefore, keeping that atmosphere in view, and the largest market, one of the largest market of the world, keeping that in view, if we can provide a stable policy regime, that will be the safe destination of restless world capital. For the next 2-3 years, Eurozone will take time to settle. The fragile growth in the advanced economy will take time to stabilize. In between, if we provide a stable policy regime, stable institutional framework, including the stock market, including bond market, including debt fund, infrastructure debt fund. That is why we have, and even in my budget speech, I devoted a considerable part of time to give these details, only to ensure that institutions, organizations, policy framework are in place, come and make investment through FII, through FDI and through various other instrumentalities. That is the message I wanted to convey, and I am confident we will have it.
All right, Mr. Finance Minister, many thanks for your time, and clearly wishing you all the best for this very important budget, which could actually prove to be a turnaround in our current economic cycle. Many thanks for joining us today. That was Finance Minister Pranab Mukherjee's first interview after the budget, and speaking about all the initiatives that have been taken. If you've been watching, thank you.
Thank you very much, and my best wishes to your viewers.